14,000 years ago, there were no rifles on this frozen plain. No steel blades. No maps, engines, roads, or weather forecasts. Yet somewhere beyond the morning fog, a herd of wild reindeer was moving toward the river. For the people waiting here, finding that herd was not a sport. It was the difference between entering winter with food or facing the cold with almost nothing. Their weapons were made from wood, stone, bone, and antler. But the most important weapon they carried could not be held in the hand.
It was knowledge. Knowledge.
Knowledge of the land. Knowledge of the wind. A knowledge of exactly where an animal would move before it appeared. This is an AI-assisted archaeological reconstruction of how Ice Age hunters may have prepared for one of the most important hunts of their year. The world these hunters knew was cold, open, and constantly changing. This was the closing chapter of the last Ice Age. Wild horses, reindeer, and other grazing animals followed seasonal routes through this landscape. Human communities followed them, not blindly, but with an understanding built over generations. The people in this reconstruction are modern humans, Homo sapiens, just like us.
They were not clumsy brutes wandering without purpose. They made fitted clothing and maintained controlled fires.
What it can reveal are the objects they left behind. Flint blades, antler points, animal bones. Survival was not built on strength alone. It depended on preparation, observation, and cooperation. Long before a weapon was raised, the hunt had already begun. Two members of the group moved ahead, searching for signs that most people today would walk past.
A track was more than the shape of a hoof. Its edges could suggest whether it had been made recently.
Hair caught on a branch and fresh droppings, all added pieces to the same story.
But tracks alone were not enough. The hunters also watched the river.
At certain points, shallow banks created natural crossings. The people did not need to chase the herd across the open plain. That would waste energy. Instead, they searched for the place where geography would narrow the animal's choices.
The direction of the wind was equally important.
Human scent carried toward the herd could end the hunt before it even began.
The scouts watched it drift through the air.
The wind was moving away from the crossing. For now, the river offered them an advantage.
Metal would not be used for thousands of years. But the absence of metal did not mean the absence of technology. A skilled toolmaker selected a piece of flint because of the way it fractured.
With controlled strikes, thin blades could be removed from a prepared core. Different pieces could be shaped for cutting, scraping, piercing, or repairing other tools. Stone, however, was only one part of a larger system. They also worked with wood, bone, and antler. A projectile point might be made from stone, bone, or antler. It could be attached with bindings and natural adhesive.
The shaft had to be straight.
It was warmed carefully and adjusted by hand. A warped projectile would not fly reliably. Beside it lay a shorter object with a hook at one end. This was a spear thrower. It worked as an extension of the hunter's arm. The hook held the end of a long, light projectile. When the hunter moved forward and snapped the wrist, the spear thrower increased the leverage.
The projectile could leave with greater speed and force than a weapon thrown by hand alone. The weapon still demanded practice, timing, and an understanding of distance.
A damaged point had to be replaced. A cracked shaft had to be repaired.
The hunt might last only a few minutes. Preparing for it could take days.
The group could not afford confusion at the river. They reviewed the shape of the crossing using marks in the soil.
The plan was simple enough to remember, but difficult to execute.
Several hunters would remain hidden downwind near the bank. Others would position themselves farther back. No one needed to shout. Large movements and unnecessary sound could expose the entire group.
The archaeological record cannot tell us whether hunting roles were divided strictly by age or sex. What mattered most was experience. Someone had to understand the animals.
Someone had to recognize when the herd was calm and when it was becoming alert.
Patience was not hesitation. Patience was part of the weapon.
The hunters left camp before the light became strong. They carried only what they needed. They avoided the skyline, where the shape of a standing person could be seen from far away. Loose equipment was secured to prevent it from knocking against wood or stone. Near the crossing, they separated. Each hunter moved toward a position chosen earlier. The cold settled into their hands. The river continued to move, but the human figures disappeared.
Then one of the watchers raised a hand.
Across the plain, several dark shapes had appeared through the mist. The reindeer were coming. The herd did not rush toward the river. It moved in stages. A few animals advanced, stopped, and listened. Others followed only when the first showed no danger. For the hunters, this was the most delicate moment. Moving too early would reveal them. One reindeer entered the water. Then another followed. Soon, part of the herd was committed to the crossing. Water slowed their movement. The first hunter remained low and fitted the end of the projectile onto the hook of the spear thrower. The movement had been practiced many times. The feet found balance. The shoulder turned. The arm came forward, and the wrist completed the motion. For a fraction of a second, the spear thrower became a longer limb. The herd reacted immediately. Water erupted as the animals changed direction. Within moments, it was over. Most of the herd escaped and disappeared into the pale distance. One animal had been taken. For the people, that single success represented food, fat, hide, and sinew. The hunters approached carefully. The moment demanded calm rather than celebration. Cut marks on animal bones show how stone tools were used to separate meat and remove hides. Meat provided protein, but fat was especially valuable. It supplied concentrated energy. The hide could become clothing, bedding, or part of a shelter. Sinew could be prepared for bindings. The return to camp turned an individual success into a community resource. The people who had remained behind had not been idle. Fires were maintained. Tools were repaired.
Some portions of meat could be cooked soon. Others might be dried for later use.
The hide required careful processing. Stone scrapers helped remove remaining tissue.
Children watched these actions closely. Knowledge survived because someone demonstrated how a sharp edge should feel.
The true technology of the Stone Age was not stone. It was the ability to combine knowledge held by many people.
Thousands of years later, the people themselves are gone. But some traces survived. Flint fragments remain where tools were made. Burned stone marks the locations of ancient hearths. 14,000 years later, the metal may be missing. But intelligence, planning, and cooperation are everywhere. If you would like to explore more evidence-based reconstructions of ancient survival, tracking, and hunting knowledge, subscribe and join us for the next journey into humanity's past.